members of the book club, welcome to another excellent session. This session promises to be very interesting because it's about Ambedkar, for heaven's sake. I mean, this is a man that has been at the center of controversy, discussion, analysis, historical reference, and whatnot. And as if that was not enough, the book is written by none other than Shashi Tharoor, who always gets a lot of attention with whatever he does. So I'm eager to find out how Shashi Tharoor has presented Ambedkar. And Anna Dragonette is the person who's going to present the book to us. Now, Anna has made excellent use of her degree in sociology. She's an educator and she has channeled her energies towards helping people in the underprivileged areas. So, salute. I think I'm ready to hand over to you and hear what you have to say about Ambedkar as presented by Shashi Tharoor in this book. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you all for being here. I will just share my screen without any further.
Now, may I just request?
So, the book being presented, one of the covers is on my screen right now. And the question we need naturally to ask first is, why Ambedkar? Now, coincidentally, today, 26th of November, has been declared Constitution Day. This is not something that we knew was going to happen. And today, Ambedkar's statue has been unveiled in the Supreme Court. So that's one reason why Ambedkar, though that was coincidental. The thing is that Ambedkar is one of those human beings who, as we move further and further away from his life, he grows larger and larger in stature. Shashi Tharoor says that there was a survey done by two prominent Indian news channels, and both of them brought Ambedkar up as the most popular Indian, right? So that is absolutely surprising because the most well-known Indian in my understanding is Mahatma Gandhi. And now, as far as statues are concerned, now in India, Ambedkar has almost as many statues as does Mahatma Gandhi. So why is this man, so many years after his death, becoming more and more prominent, becoming more and more of a public figure? He got the Bharat Ratna in 1996, so many years after his death. So that's why we try to understand this man, because this is a bit of a phenomenon, right? And of course, Shashi Tharoor, the author, I would not attempt to discuss his merits as a writer because they are so very well known, right? But the thing is, he has taken this mass of information, the mass of writing that Ambedkar has put in, right? And he's condensed it into a 200-page book. But the book is clear and concise throughout. It follows a logical structure, and it's practically a can't put down book, which would be very unexpected in a book, a biography, right? A biography not of a man who had lots of adventures and did all sorts of amazing things, right? In terms of action, a man of words, but yet we can't stop reading this book. And another thing that I really admire about Dr. Tharoor is he's maintained his objectivity throughout. And that, I think, is really something very, very treasured today, that a writer tries to maintain their objectivity. There's one thing that for a man who's practically a walking thesaurus, he has used the word prescient in connection with Ambedkar more than once, many more times than once, and this would not be expected from Shashi Tharoor. And when I thought about this some more, I realized that Ambedkar was a man of such a powerful intellect, of such clear thinking, of being almost to a fault disengaged from emotions, that he could see into the future, not as a mystic or an astrologer, but by just using his logical brain. And then he knew, therefore, that if we are here today and these are the following steps that will take us to that point 10 years from now. And that, I think, is at the root of his prescience. Okay. So the words on the screen, which you have all read, are from Sant Tukaram. The words, of course, relate to both the author and the man being spoken about. And taken from Sant Tukaram many years before even the British came on the scene in India. So that is our Indian spiritual intellectualism, which had developed independently of too many outside influences. So Shashi Tharoor has divided the book into two parts. So book one is his life, which starts from his childhood, his education. Then as he becomes a mouthpiece, a leader of the Dalit, as he becomes a mouthpiece for Indian policy, both in Britain and in India, and as he keeps going on, and it ends with disillusion, which is something that maybe not many people are aware of. And for me too, it was a revelation, and that we can discuss as we go along. Second part is his legacy, which is all very, I think, well known. His democratic nationalism is very notable because he focused very clearly that, yes, we need political democracy, but it is of no use without social democracy. And that is a very visionary viewpoint. So we go into laying the foundation, right? That's his childhood. We can just go through it very quickly. He was born to the Mahar community, very low caste, but they were very brave fighters. And the British East India Company spotted this and therefore inducted them into the British East India Company army. And they were instrumental in defeating the Peshwas. And here you could practically say the controversies begin here, that the Mahar caste joined the oppressor in defeating the Peshwas. But we have to remember, if we look at this picture of this boy sitting outside the class, who is the oppressor to him? That becomes a bit of a question. The very fact that he's sitting outside the class is because his father was working for the British Army. And there was a rule that every person who worked for the British Army, their children had to, it was mandatory, statutory, they had to go to school. And therefore he had to go to school and nobody could refuse him. But this is the way he had to attend school, right? However, he completed, this is Elphinstone College, where it had a school attached then, where he matriculated from. He went on to graduate from Elphinstone College, then goes on to Columbia University in the US, the London School of Economics, and then eventually a bar at law, right? So very, very a huge achievements for a man who came from practically nothing. But all this did not happen without the help of some very good people who came along his way. I haven't mentioned all the teachers who helped him, who were kind to him, and other people. But the big names are, first of all, Mr. K. Khelsurkar, who was a prominent Marathi writer. And you would see Ambedkar, the young Ambedkar, studying in the Elphinstone gardens. And he was impressed by how hard this boy was working, and he struck up a friendship. And he's the one who introduced Ambedkar to Buddhism. Also, he introduced Ambedkar to Sayaji Rao Gaikwad, who was the Maharaja of Baroda, who helped Ambedkar through his education and did not at any point withdraw. Okay, then there was Naval Bhatena, who was a Parsi, who he met at Columbia University and roomed with him. Roomed with him sounds like an innocuous statement, right? But for Ambedkar, the untouchable, that anyone was willing to room with him was an absolute shock. So, and Naval Bhatena remained his friend, right until his death. Okay. So once he matriculated, he was married to Ramabai, a 9-year-old. They had 5 children, and he and his 2 brothers lived in a joint family. Uh, Ambedkar always encouraged his wife to study, to improve herself, to be equal to him. His 2 brothers looked after the family while Ambedkar was studying in all parts of the world. And the younger brother, who was a laborer and worked very hard to look after the family, died prematurely in 1914. Okay. He lived a very deprived life. All the time he was studying, he was starving. Okay, so at first you had the Maharaja of Baroda, who gave him the money to graduate. His father was unable to pay after his inter year. Then we have the Maharaja of Baroda, who gave him the money to study in USA, and Naval Batena, who paid for his license to practice law. Anything he scraped and saved from his stipends, he would send home. Okay, now it's very important because today, maybe not today, but maybe some years ago, say Arun Shuri wrote a book, 700-page book, where he trivialized, where he said, he didn't trivialize, let's say, he said that too much had been made of what Ambedkar went through, the humiliations he went through as an untouchable. That time they were called untouchables, in his childhood and in his early years. This is something we really need to think about, because what he went through in his life, right? When he came back to Gujarat to work with the Maharaja of Baroda, as was the agreement, he could not stay at the palace because nobody in the palace would have anything to do with him. They would not let him drink water. They would not serve him food, nothing. He goes out to try and take a room on rent. Nobody will give it to him. He finally enrolls in the Parsi boarding house. And when the Parsis find out, he thought he'd be safe in the Parsi place. They come with sticks and they hammer him and they throw him out. So there is no choice but for him to go back to Bombay. He cannot fulfill his obligation to the Maharaja. And in Bombay, he tries. He's written papers on economics, which have been accepted by the British government as maybe an influencing factor in their policy, by the Indians as something important, but nobody will be part of his investment consultancy. Nobody wants to have anything to do with an untouchable. So eventually he gets a job as a professor of Sydenham College, which is actually a very big deal because it was a very prestigious college, and an untouchable being a professor, there was really something big. And these are the people who really influenced him. Just some, the saints, Tukaram and Kabir, whose father was a devotee of and often recited to him and his brothers and sisters. There's Rana Day, there's John Dewey, there's the Black American intellectuals. And because he had a affinity for all the people who were discriminated against, who were the depressed people of the world, he did tend to lean towards communist or Marxist writing, right? Okay, so now the next stage in his life is from 1923 to 1930. He's finished his most of his education, and he's beginning to make a mark, right? So when he was in London in 1916, now this is rather significant, he met Lala Lajpat Rai, who was in London to advocate for home rule. And he tried to talk to Lala Lajpat Rai about the needs and the concerns of the untouchables. But Lala Lajpat Rai instead tried to convince him that that's a secondary issue. We got to get rid of these Brits first. And that upset Ambedkar a lot. And so in 1919, when as a professor of Sydenham College, he was invited to the Southborough Committee, he recommended this controversial thing, a separate electorate for the Dalits and reservations, which today now is being called as affirmative action. Okay, this is the palace of Sahu Maharaj, Kolhapur, who always worked for the upliftment of the untouchables, and he convinced Ambedkar to get involved in this paper called Mook Nayak, right? And Mook Nayak was, I think, the voice of the leader of the silent, right? And he also convinced Ambedkar to wander around, to roam, to walk through Maharashtra, speaking to people, sharing the message, awakening the people. So there was a series of conferences, in Maharashtra. This was a notable one, where the Conference of the Untouchables at Nagpur. Over here, it marked his first victory in a debate in public. It showed what Ambedkar could do, because he defeated Karamveer Shinde in a discussion, right, on whether the Dalit issue should take any kind of stage until the British independence was completely. India got its independence, right? Now in 1924, he organized this conference at Damodar Hall in Bombay, where he coined his slogan, educate, organize, and agitate. Till today, this is a slogan that the Dalits live by. Educate first, then organize and agitate, right? And in these years, right, he realized that it was very important to have a root to branch change, is what he said. And he felt it was very important for him to arouse the consciousness of the depressed classes. They were now, I think, changed. The name changed from untouchable to depressed classes. And he wanted them to have a feeling of self-respect, of having a feeling of their right to be a human being as any other human being was. So he went to various towns and villages, right? Now, in the meantime, the caste Hindus, right, have convinced the British that they do not want the untouchables, the depressed classes in the British army, because they are joining it. And now this was a terrible blow to the community, and especially to Ambedkar, because he knew how his life had changed because of his father's connection and his grandfather's and etc. to the British army. And so he had, in January 1920, in this infamous place, Bhima Koregaon, he had a huge protest to protest this policy to exclude the depressed classes from the armed forces. However, he was not immediately successful, but that didn't deter this man. He just kept going. Now, in 1923, the Bombay Legislative Council had declared all public facilities open to the depressed classes. But this was not implemented. So in March 1927, he had a meeting at Mahad, and he and a lot of Dalits went and drew water from the tank. They went and drew water from the tank, and they were attacked. They were violently attacked. Now, Ambedkar did not eschew, he did not say, I don't believe or I believe in violence. He, unlike Gandhi, believed that the ends the means justified the means, whereas Gandhi said the ends never justify the means. Right? Ambedkar said, we will do what we have to do. But he never indulged in violence. He never encouraged violence. His weapons were words, the law, and various other things. And he even tried some of Gandhi's tactics, but somehow it didn't work for him, right? They tried to have a satyagraha, but it failed. And the Mahad municipality actually declared this water tank closed to the depressed classes against the ruling of the Legislative Council. And this is what was angering, embittering Ambedkar more and more, that he's up against a stone wall here. There's something he's banging his head against and nothing's happening, you know. But being indefatigable as he was, he went ahead, he had a conference for women. He realized how important it was for women to be uplifted and to how women could pass on a sense of self-respect, dignity to their children. And so he convinced them to not to wear their saris in a style which would identify them from afar as untouchable. So 3,000 of them at this meeting changed their style of wearing saris. Uh, Another thing that affected him very badly is he had a friend, uh, Sridhar Pant Tilak, who was the son of Lokmanya Tilak. And Sridhar Pant Tilak was very strongly anti-Brahmin, and he invited Ambedkar over to his house for tea, which was absolutely not acceptable to the Kesari Marathas or the Brahmins. And to add insult to injury, he invited the Untouchable Boys Choir. I didn't even know that such a thing existed, but anyway, to his house, and they sang. His house being, of course, Lokmanya Tilak's house. And they sang there, and this angered the Kesari Maratha Trust very much. And they harassed this man, right, continually, who was by now a good friend of Ambedkar's, until he threw himself under the Bombay Pune train. He committed suicide. But before he committed suicide, he sent a letter to Ambedkar explaining. And this was, of course, very hurtful to Ambedkar, that because somebody supported him and his cause, he was hounded until he committed suicide. Right? Now, he gets invited to the Legislative Council, right, in 28. And he tries to introduce a bill against the Hereditary Offensive Act. The Hereditary Offensive Act was this terrible law that stated that anyone involved in menial services, like cleaning toilets, cleaning the streets, removing dead bodies or carcasses, etc., if they were ill and could not come to work, they had to send one of their family members. It was statutory, it was punishable if they did not send. He tried to fight against it. He tried to introduce a bill against it in the Legislative Council, but it was defeated. Okay? But he did get maternity benefits for women laborers. Now, as he goes along, as he's constantly being obstructed, he feels that now it's time for some drastic remedies. He is to some extent influenced by the French Revolution, and he has this public burning on December 25th, 1927, of the Manusmriti. This was an absolutely shocking thing. But here is a line from the Manusmriti which upset him a lot. Even though the Shudra possesses the quality or merit, he or she should be prohibited from the collection of money or wealth. Okay, now he is engaged now, Ambedkar, on a war on two fronts. He does not want British rule because he knows, being an economist, that it's impoverishing India. He does not, on the other hand, he feels there's a certain protection for the Dalits from the British. So he's very much fighting for the Dalit cause as well. So this sort of he is a little struggle within himself and with the rest of the world, of course. So we have him here, his dissent with the nationalists. Okay, we know about the Southborough Committee. Now, in 1925, the Indian National Congress boycotted the Simon Commission, and they got Motilal Nehru to draft a constitution for new India, independent India. But when Ambedkar read this constitution, he was appalled because it was very admirable. It was a very clever diplomatic constitution. It dealt with the issues of the Muslims, the Christians, the Hindu the Hindu Mahasabha, various things. but it did made no mention of the cause of the untouchables. And this upset Ambedkar very much. It angered him. And so he separately submitted a report to the Simon Commission, which had been boycotted by the nationalists. And of course, the British rewarded him by nominating him to the Legislative Council. One needs to pause a minute or two to try and understand that how Ambedkar, the controversy that was raging within Ambedkar, he knew that for India to become prosperous, egalitarian city, British rule has to go. Swaraj and independence are essential. But on the other hand, he believed in liberty, equality, and fraternity. And he said that those three rights have to come to the Dalits as well. And who is going to ensure that? How will that be? How can we make certain that that will happen? And that's why he thought, his opinion was, or his educated guess was, that we need a separate electorate, right? Okay, so that we ended that there, and now we go to scaling the peaks, which we still got enough time. He attended the roundtable conference, which the nationalists were in jail, so they didn't attend. And here he tried to bring out to the British Parliament, right, that a population as large as the population of Britain was reduced to a position worse than that of serfs or slaves. He did not have a word to use to explain what was happening to his people in India and had been happening for the past so many thousand years. So he used serfs or slaves. So now he puts forward at this roundtable conference the need for a strong central government, because he feels that will protect the depressed classes. And now there are a few other Indian groups there at the roundtable conference, and Ambedkar doesn't want to go on the wrong side of anyone. So he puts forward this Declaration of Fundamental Rights, liberty, equality, fraternity, and he convinces Munje, who is the leader of the Hindu Mahasabha, to endorse this, liberty, equality, and fraternity, right? Now, this recognition of political rights for the depressed classes, which Ambedkar put forward at the first roundtable conference, Gandhi, who wasn't there, called it political suicide. Okay, so now we have the second roundtable conference. Now, what happens in the second roundtable conference? There are so many different people, so many groups, so many. There's the Muslims, there's the Hindu Mahasabha, there's just so many different ideas and opinions, and the deep divisions become evident, right? And the worst of them being between Mahatma Gandhi and Ambedkar, where Mahatma Gandhi is strongly opposing the separate electorate and Ambedkar is not backing down. So the British then decide to go ahead and do their own thing. And in 1932, because the second roundtable conference also failed, they announced the communal award, which gives the Dalit 2 votes. One, to vote for their own representatives who they have picked and only they vote for. And two is to their second vote for the general public. And Gandhi is appalled. He says, this is the British way. This is the British divide and rule. He embarks on a fast unto death. Now, Ambedkar is not really very impressed with his fast unto death, but he realizes that it's politically expedient for him to come to terms with this. So he goes to the Yerwada jail. This is very well known. And they have a compromise. And history still debates this now and will debate it for years to come. Was this a historic compromise? Was this something great that happened? Or was this emotional blackmail? But anyway, whatever it is, Ambedkar pulled out of his demand for a separate electorate, and Gandhi agreed to reservations for the Dalits in political positions. All right, now what happens next is the Dalits have had this 5-year satyagraha for entry to the Kalaram temple, but nothing happens. Okay, they don't get it, and he makes this public statement: "I solemnly assure you that I will not die a Hindu." This, of course, upsets not only his enemies, but much more it upsets his friends. And he tries to explain to them. He says, Mahatma Gandhi says to him, you have got to wait. You have to wait for Hinduism to heal itself, to right itself, because that was Gandhi's way of thinking, that change comes from within, change cannot be enforced from without. And uh, but Ambedkar said that we will never get back what we've lost for so many years by appealing to anyone's conscience. We have to relentlessly struggle. And then he says goats are not used for sacrificial offering. Goats are used, not lions. Though, remember, always he never advocated uh, violence. If anyone would see violence, a lion as a symbol of violence, that's not what he meant at all. Okay. Now, anyway, he's become obviously very prominent and now a leader of the depressed classes, the Dalits. And he writes this book, The Annihilation of Caste, which nobody wants to publish because he has openly said that he will not die a Hindu, means he's going to convert sooner or later. Anyway, he self-publishes and it's translated into many regional languages and the book is a hit. And this upsets Gandhi, and Gandhi says that untouchability is not sanctified by the scriptures. Gandhi's point was caste is not the issue, untouchability is the issue. This Ambedkar did not agree with, and he said Gandhi is the most determined enemy of the untouchables. All right. Now, there was a group from Punjab. Their name was, wait, I'll tell you, Jatpat Todak Mandal. They called him to speak. Right now, they are all caste Hindus. And they want him to come and speak, to share his ideas and his views in the Punjab. But they ask him, please do not say that you are not going to die a Hindu. Do not even mention that you're considering converting or anything like that. Please do not display very strong anti-Hindu views. And he says, sorry, I cannot agree to that. And they are very disappointed because they are his friends. And then he writes this, right? For once, he's showing some emotion. He says like it's so tragic that these are the reforming sect of caste Hindus, right? And they cannot afford to alienate their orthodox fellows. But on the other hand, the self-respecting untouchable cannot but insist on reform. So, yeah, that's the pathos of the situation. Now he, of course, gets political success. He has a party which wins 14 seats, and he manages to achieve a few things, like he manages to abolish the quota system and get rights for landless laborers. And he wants the word Harijan removed because he says, we are all children of God. Why are you giving a divine sanction to untouchability by saying they are the children of God? No, we are all children of God. So anyway, it didn't get removed straight away. And he criticized the Industrial Disputes Bill because in his fight for anyone who was oppressed, depressed, discriminated, he leaned towards the left, let's say. Okay. Now, World War II comes, the Viceroy declares war on Germany, but they do not consult the elected government, the Legislative Council, and the Congress is angry. They resign. Jinnah and Ambedkar support the war because now, we won't get into why Jinnah supported the war, but Ambedkar said that this war is an attack, rightly or wrongly, no opinions here, is an attack on democracy. And we need democracy. It's our liberty, our equality, our fraternity. We cannot have anybody attacking that. So we have to go to this war. Okay. Now, this causes a lot of unrest then. And Cripps comes and there's some proposals passed. But in the meantime, taking advantage of the fact that the Congress is, all of them are in jail, the Lahore resolution is passed, where the call for the creation of Pakistan. And Ambedkar publishes a book, Thoughts on Pakistan, where he's neither for or against, he just putting forward the situation as it is. Okay. Now, India gets various concessions in 1946 from the British, but the scheduled castes are no longer, they have no place in the new setup that is being designed, right? So we come to triumph and that would be a very upsetting thing for Ambedkar, that whatever is being written, whatever is being said, we're talking about the Muslims, the Sikhs, the Parsis, nothing is being said about the untouchables, right? Anyway, he has, in the middle of all this, a lot of triumphs. He started the People's Education Society. He's the chairman of the drafting committee. Most of the people in the drafting committee didn't attend. You could almost say he single-handedly wrote the constitution. And he was India's first law minister, which is also a huge achievement. Okay. Now, he had some concerns about the constitution that was being written. He said that we have to hold on to constitutional methods of achieving social and economic objectives, right? We have to now, once we get our constitution in, our constitution is the final authority. We do not need to protest on the roads and all anymore. Okay. But he knows that the way the constitution is being written, his prescience, do not entrust the country's fate to any great man or trust him with power which enables him to subvert the institutions. The institutions are what he really believed in: the law, the education systems, the various institutions that uphold any democracy. And another thing he said is that this constitution aims at political democracy, but eventually is a social democracy. Okay. Now, his disillusion, he finds out that, for all his intellectualism, his logic, his reasoning, everything that he has achieved, he loses elections. Because when it comes to elections, emotions play a much larger part than anything else. This is something he did not understand. He did not come to terms with. In September 51, years where he has this falling out with Nehru, who was always his champion, he was working on the Hindu Code Bill as requested by Nehru, and he was trying to protect the rights of women within the Hindu fold. And the caste Hindus just threw it out, and that really upset Ambedkar, and he resigned. But Nehru said, before you resign, please let me see the letter you're going to read, your resignation letter. And he says, I will not. And that's a fallout with Nehru. And as a result, it's a very sad thing that happened. He's bypassed as head of the Planning Commission. In 1956, he converts to Buddhism. But by now, 9 years after independence, he has become a more understanding human being. And he puts forward the idea of a Prabuddha Bharat, which is based on Hindu traditions, European Enlightenment, and Buddhist thought. Okay, so this is his funeral in Bombay. Okay, now the second part, I've only got a few minutes left, which is his legacy. He was huge. His achievements are really amazing. But dignity and self-respect were very, very important to him, right? Ambedkar, Nehru, and Patel, as Shashi Tharoor said, in alphabetical order, none is more prominent. They are the ones who advocated this robustly secular and legal construct, which is now our constitution, right? There were other forces at play. There was Gandhi, spirituality and moral concerns. There was Tagore, the mystic. there was mythology and theology. All these ideas and opinions were there. But these three men, these three giants, gave us this constitution for which we, I suppose, can ever be grateful. Uh, Now, his democratic nationalism, he believed in the individual, that, and he believed that the individual will willingly submit to an impersonal force which is for his good. And then this will liberate the individual, and this will bring about a socio-economic transformation. Okay? Ambedkar famously said that once a Hindu started going abroad, casteism will go abroad. Equality Labs 2022, we have Google being accused of casteism. Okay, then we have the Hungarian Romani, who started, the gypsies who started embracing Buddhism. And in the California State University and Carleton University in Ottawa, non-discrimination policies now include the word caste discrimination. Now, Shashi Tharoor has taken the liberty of pointing out 4 of his flaws. One was, for some reason, he did not understand the situation of the Adivasis. He tended to treat their situation and the solution more like how the Red Indian solution was. Okay, you guys stay in a reserve and we'll look after you, kind of thing. That was one of the flaws. This quasi-Manchian view of Hinduism. Hinduism is all bad. There's nothing good about it. Which is, of course, can never be true of anything. He was very ungracious towards Gandhi, though Gandhi was very understanding and actually said, I would understand if he took a stick and hit us all over the head with it for what he has been through in life, you know. And another flaw, as pointed out by Tharoor, is statism. He believed in the state. He believed that the state was the agent of enlightenment, not the inner person as Gandhi did, but the state. Okay, and today, this is, I think, the last slide. Badri Narayan, a famous Indian sociologist, has put forward this thing that everybody claims him today. Political parties have completely different ideologies, vying with one another to associate themselves with this man. And this is a sort of anomaly which one cannot quite understand. Okay, so thank you. I'll stop share, and I think I've finished well within my time. So we can go ahead with any discussion.
Anna, very beautiful. You, in this 45 minutes, you have been able to get to
42, 42.
42 minutes, able to get the essence of the book. In fact, there are some things which you said, and the thing make it more interesting than what I thought it would be. Like, for instance, the Tirak's son was made an outcast because he supported. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of rubbed off from history. Tirak has gone off, he's become a political figure rather than anything else. So this is something new to me. I personally feel that he needed to be a little more stronger without the thing, to persuade Nehru more than Gandhi to get this whole concept of what to do with the poorest of the poor. That's where I think both Nehru and he failed to make a comeback which would have worked better. That's how I looked at it after your talk. Okay, anyone would like to say something?
Thank you, Anna, for a very comprehensive survey of this book. I haven't read it yet, though I've read Tharoor, but I've not read this book. One knows a little bit about Ambedkar's background, but the way you brought it out, it gives you a full picture of his life in as brief a time as you could possibly do. I wanted to ask you, this is a biography, and there have been other biographies of Ambedkar. What is it that you found? Maybe you haven't read other biographies, but what could have been different in this biography? Would you say that the 4 flaws that he speaks about, Tharoor speaks about as regarding Ambedkar, and the way he brings them out, this is what makes the biography different from other biographies of Ambedkar? Otherwise, this also would be another biography, well written, by a person like Tharoor, but perhaps it's a complete, comprehensive look at our political life and our social life. But is there something different? Or the flaws are what Shashi Tharoor brings out that creates the difference?
Oh, no, I don't think the flaws are what create the difference. The flaws are there. That is Shashi Tharoor's opinion. Somebody else may or may not agree with that opinion, right? But what makes the book different is he has tried to chronologically document this man's life, but at the same time, get us to understand why this man became what he was without an emotional, there's no incident which is deeply spoken about, right? So I find, I haven't read any other biographies of Ambedkar, so I can't really, I'm not competent, maybe somebody else may. But I feel over here that without emotion, Tharoor has tried to give us a very clear picture of this man who was a man of words, right? We have to understand him mostly from his words. And that's what I feel. And so that we can understand him and all the controversial things he did. I mean, he was called the sort of dream boy of the British Empire and various other things. Of course, people have called Gandhi the same. But so that's the best I can do to answer your question. But maybe somebody else who has read could answer better. I don't know.
All I would say is that there are pluses and minuses in the way India has historically moved ahead after Ambedkar. Caste has still remained an inherent part of our society, integral part of our society. And in today's times of India itself, as the latest, Swaminathan Iyer has an article which states that our neighbors, Nepal and Bangladesh, which were far behind us 50 years ago, have gone ahead in so many indicators, social and human development indicators, they've gone ahead. And the reason why India has not gone ahead in many of these indicators is caste. So it could be as much Dalits as other castes in India. So casteism prevails, and we are steeped in it. We are born with it.
And this is no. This is what Shashi Tharoor says in the end of his book. He says that eventually, so many years down the line, we see that unfortunately, the line of thinking which we would all wanted to take, which was Mahatma Gandhi's, did not prove itself historically. Ambedkar's proved itself. That no, you cannot get rid of untouchability of casteism so easily. You have to, it is a relentless struggle.
But that is
Gandhi
what
thought that it would get rid of itself by love, by this, by
no,
various...
that's what I'm saying. That is why I quoted Swaminathan Iyer, that caste hasn't left the Indian soul, the Indian mind. It's still there. And that is one of the reasons we have not progressed on many fronts the way our neighbors have progressed.
Can I enter this thing? I think, this pushing the caste system, it would have been, I think the Congress should have taken it up much further up when it had the powers there. I do not like the concept of whatever you call this. What is the word for it? I forget it. Giving them special provision.
Affirmative action. Affirmative action.
But affirmative action should really come by seeing that they get education, by seeing that tomorrows are better for them. That would have been a better thing. Rather than you have pushed them up for there, and this gets in, a lot of resistance has come up, and a whole group of people feel that हमें नौकरी नहीं मिलती, इनको मिल रही है. So why is it? And we have not been able to get away from this whole situation here.
Yeah, so Maharashtra is full of caste politics right now.
So Satish, I want to say here, Satish, that this is what Ambedkar said. Now, see, you use the word they, pardon my saying that, but this is what Ambedkar said. No, we the Dalits will take charge of our issues. We will resolve our issues. You, Mahatma Gandhi, can only be an advisor on the side. You can never be a leader of the Dalits. We are the leaders. When he started that Hindu Bashishkrit Hitharkarni, his directors were all high caste Hindus and intellectuals, but his managing committee was only Dalits. And this is something that did not happen. The Dalit cause got hijacked by the Congress, which was more caste Hindu kind of a party, right? I mean, I don't mean to take sides, sorry, but I don't think that Nehru, this is what he said. Ambedkar said this in his quotation, that they cannot afford to alienate their orthodox fellows. This is what happened to the Congress. They had to pander, they would have lost their power if they did not pander to the caste Hindus. The Hindu Mahasabha would have taken over. They then wouldn't have had to wait so many years.
It's a bigger
Now they're taken
constituency.
over. Now
Their
they're
wait
taken
is over. Yeah.
But it's a bigger constituency. You have to pander if you want to win elections.
That's why, so the expediency of it, so hence you see why he asked for a separate electorate, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe there was something in what he said. Maybe he should have been given more, they should have...
A separate electorate would have become, उनको कुछ अलग मिलता है, हमें ये नहीं मिलता. Everyone should, I feel, have an equal amount of power, whatever power it is. And do not make groups of caste and language or anything around, which really will break up the country faster than anything else. That's how I feel. Take everyone to what he is, and do not bring in religion, do not bring in caste, do not bring in all these factors. Then only we'll go forward. Otherwise, you're going to go forward. Please try and understand what it was in the 50s and what it is now. It's so different. And so worrisome that I don't know where are we going anywhere, which way. I feel that. I was a young boy there, a young man in the 60s. And the feeling of what India is, yes, we lost to the Chinese, but yes, we can come up. We can come up. That's how the feeling was. But now it is, वहाँ तो थोड़ा जाता है, वहाँ थोड़ा जाता है, and I don't like what is happening around. I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm being so negative on that. Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, so other people, please weigh in. Runa, I'm sure you want to say
Runa
something.
has got something. She's thinking about it. I can see that. Look.
You need to unmute your mic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Somebody else had something to say. I frankly find this subject too vast a topic to talk about, really, without knowing all the finer details. And I don't think anyone ever can. And I think it will boil down to a matter of opinion in many, many ways. Yeah.
I personally feel that a lot depends on education and how we educate, who educates, how the teachers are trained, how schools run. I think it should start at the youngest
Yes,
level.
I
It will
fully
take
agree.
a long
But
time.
that's
It will take a long time
That's how
because
it
you may
started.
learn what. Huh?
You know, Latika, that's what it started. Our 50s and our 60s were pushing for education. Education was very important. A teacher was God that time.
Teacher was God, Satish. But this is something which I felt right from the, when I was young. I felt that, yes, the intention was there, but India was a very poor country. I mean,
Agreed.
the 60s and 70s, it was terrible. I remember the people used to say, there were these Lakshman cartoons with India going around with a begging bowl all over the world, Remember,
Yeah,
there
the
was no wheat.
PL480 and
There
all
was
that.
PL 480 and all that. So, it was a very poor country. But even then, whatever the budget was, the percentage of funding on education was, I think at that time, somebody may correct me, I may be wrong.
I'm not sure.
3% or so, 3% or so. Today, it is 1% or something. So,
My goodness.
funding on education has gone down, and you will find that, the quality of education and public school, meaning government school education, is different in different states. Okay. Some states are better than others. Pardon me, but many of the North Indian states, if you go to the villages, I mean, I have had the occasion to visit rural schools, and it's pitiful. They are schools only in name. There is hardly any teacher, there's one teacher, So what education are we talking about? What quality are we talking about? That's one.
Hello.
Yeah, and frankly, who wants to go and teach? I mean, there is an issue. There are no trained people, and who can enthuse? And, it's
There are
difficult.
too
I mean,
many
it's
such
a very, very
issues.
vast subject, but I agree with you in principle, Latika. Access to education is the first thing that is required.
And what kind of
Good
education, Runa?
good
Today, we are
quality. Yes,
the NCRT new committee that has been set up
I
is
agree
saying
with
that we should introduce Mahabharata, Ramayana,
mythology. Yeah, I know.
all of that
Well,
into our teaching.
that's inevitable. That's inevitable because of the ideology. Okay,
That's right. Yeah. So,
but
what kind
But
of
but
teachers?
but will that kind of education help us
How
get
they are
no,
everyone
trained and
together?
what
no,
We will
is taught.
not.
no,
All
no,
of that
no.
is important. But
No,
education
no,
can play a
that
major
kind
role.
of education, of course, won't help because end of the day, whatever you are teaching, I mean, ours has been a very old kind of teaching in which we teach children that you can't question. You can't question. You have to
Yeah.
accept whatever we say. So, okay, earlier it was very scientific, relatively more scientific, more secular and everything, and now it is not secular. Okay, it is more based on mythology or whatever it is. But what you're teaching young minds is accept what we say, and that's it. But it's not new to India. All over the world, every single country has doctored its history and tailored its education to make it easier for the ruling people to, to control the popular narrative.
Yeah.
So we are not unusual in that sense. That's normal. What we are talking about is Ambedkar, and are we talking about the relevance of his thoughts? I think he's great. I'm sort of discovering him in my old age. But if anybody has read anything, or even a little bit, I've read little excerpts of his, writings or his discussions during the convention, the convention committee. When the our constitution was being formulated, he was the chairman of the enormous committee.
Originally,
Yeah, who were doing it, and the debates on education, on reservation, on what is the purpose of this, that, and the other.
Meaningful.
They
Yeah.
are fantastic,
Meaningful debates.
very meaningful debates, and people gave a lot of thought to it. You had really great minds. They gave a lot of thought and of the future and what are the implications. Unfortunately, and that's why I think our constitution is one hell of a great product. I mean, if you really read it, it's great. It's in concept, it's fantastic. I would say it's even better than the American Constitution.
oh, of 100%. I'll
But
put it to you. I'll
but
put it to you like this.
unfortunately, and the institutions which were started at that time, they started off with giants at their helm who were independent, who were not afraid of speaking truth, and so they gained a certain reputation. All that is being sort of undermined now, but that has happened all over the place, all over the world, in
All
fact,
over the world.
all over the world. So yeah, institutions do get eroded, and it's up to the people really. Unfortunately, our people power, I feel, has not really gained weight or gained force simply because our population has overgrown the access to resources like education and hunger and I think a safe domestic environment. We do not realize that a large majority of our people do not have a safe domestic environment. I mean, just think of how people live in urban cities.
Well, I would say, on the other hand, I mean, just to see the other side of the picture, is that education in many ways does individualize you. Definitely, technology has individualized people. And this individualization allows you to, come to know people of different castes and maybe marry outside your caste. And today, I think in many ways, marriage outside your caste is more accepted than it was 50 years ago
Oh
or
yes,
70 years ago.
without a doubt.
Marriage outside your caste is also a way to weaken the caste system.
Yes, I think
In-
Swami Vivekananda said that, right?
Hmm.
I think that was his opinion.
Uh,
But
it-
what about Arvind Kejriwal and what he's done with education in Delhi?
he's done a fantastic job.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
I
so
have seen
that's
with my own eyes. He's done a fantastic job. But then that's what I'm saying, I mean, Delhi is a relatively richer state, so more taxes, so he has maybe more money. And yeah, they had to show something. Unfortunately, his hand is very much tied.
Runa,
Mm.
Vasudha has been wanting to speak for
Oh,
some
sure,
time.
sure. Go ahead, please.
Vasudha, please come on. And then we'll have Anjali Patwardhan and Mala Sinha. Mala Sinha, sorry. Mala, Vasudha, please.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay. I have one comment, one question. There is a view that Ambedkar had thought of a time limit for the affirmative action program. He had thought of some 10 years for the reservation policy. Is this true?
Yes.
The first question.
Hmm.
And the second is, after having read this biography, can you explain to me why Ambedkar was so disillusioned towards the end of his life?
He was disillusioned. One reason, right, that he was very disillusioned is that Gandhi kept telling him untouchability will go. It will be, give it 5 years. 5 years went, 10 years went, nothing happened. That's first disillusionment. And he had to give in. He had to give in to the opinion of the public, the caste Hindu public. There were certain things which he did not want, but he had to let it pass. Even in the constitution, he had his concerns, very strong concerns about the way the constitution could be designed to concentrate all power in the hands of one man, so that that one human being could change all our institutions to suit that one human being's purpose. He saw that. But in fact, he said, I'm just a hack. I've written what they've asked me to write. This was his concern, and he actually wanted to start from ground zero with the constitution. He did not want to start what was already there and just adapt it to suit what India needed, right? But Nehru rightly, of course, said like that will take a lifetime. We cannot afford to wait. We start with what we have and we adapt it to suit what we need right now.
And
so this is part of his disillusionment. No, just to answer her question, that this was his part of his disillusionment, that the changes that he wanted, that he expected, did not happen. His own people did not vote him into power. They voted the Congress representative over him, right? Him or his him one and his party, right? They voted the Congress. The Congress had more appeal to them than he did, because he was just too intellectual. So this is all part of his disillusionment, that power did not come. I mean, when did we have a Dalit? When did Dalits assume any role of political prominence in our political history? I think, what was his name? Jagjivan Ram. But he didn't become any prime minister. Pardon?
But Bihar,
Today our prime minister is a Dalit.
Well, that is absolutely. I think that's controversial. Yeah,
Prime Minister is not Dalit.
Anjali wants to say something.
Not at all.
Anjali Patwardhan.
But our president
I just want to say two things, that we've had 75 years of reservations and so many various types of reservations. I'm sure some benefit has, fallen, come to a lot of people.
It has.
And secondly, why has there been not a single, Ambedkar was too larger than life, maybe. He was a giant, but there is no, not a single Dalit leader of national status in all these years that we have found,
Maybe
So
if there had been an
the reason
electorate,
for that?
perhaps if there had been a separate electorate, there would have been.
Okay.
India will very proudly say that we had K.R. Narayanan as our president, who was a Dalit.
Yes, K.R. Narayanan.
And Draupadi Murmu is a...
She's a Dalit.
Yeah, but he said that by not giving us a separate electorate, those who serve their masters best, those slaves who serve their masters best, they are the ones who will be put up as the representatives of the Dalits.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's what he said. Ambedkar said.
No, I think he was very far-sighted. I mean, he was far-sighted.
Very true. He was far-sighted, definitely. Mala, I see Mala somewhere there. Mala, you have any comments to make? Okay, Gautam. First Gautam and then Sunita.
I got just I noted four things. One, that Anna was comprehensively, absolutely concise and fantastic. Two, that amazingly, I earlier on said that Munje of Hindu Sabha, Mahasabha supported.
Gautam, could you talk a little louder, please?
That Munje of Hindu Mahasabha supported Ambedkar. So I don't know anything about Munje. The other thing was that very relevantly in today's time to say that do not entrust power to any great man
Yeah.
is of significance now.
So,
I'm also surprised that I did not know that at the age of 65 in 1956 he died, and he converted to Buddhism only in the last stages of his life. And I think now it's actually casteism is turning on its head. Everyone wants to be of the lower caste and be defined as not high caste to get the advantages of reservation, which is actually, I think, in the medium term, very, very useful. Also, at the in his own lifetime, and his version was, or he thought that within 10 years of affirmative action, that would suffice. He died in 1965, and during his own time, from the time of independence and the constitution, more than around 20 years had passed, and he was naturally disillusioned. So, but what is striking to me is prescience, or whatever the word I think she used, Anna, of do not entrust power to any great man.
Thanks, Gautam.
Okay, Sunita.
No, I think this book has opened my eyes to Ambedkar. He was somebody that, was just, to me, was the father of the Constitution. And then I would grumble every 14th of April because the roads outside my house were blocked. And somebody having that much of following is always, at least to me, I just feel that it was, there is something to, this kind of culthood was not something to be looked at. But much as as somebody who's grown up with a very privileged background and believe that casteism doesn't exist anymore, when I would travel abroad and people would ask me and I'd roll my eyes and say, of course not, and we don't have casteism in India. It's such a, I obviously see it from a very, very different lens, and it's absolutely true that it still exists. So it's wonderful to be able to hear this, to listen to what Tharoor has to say and this writing about Ambedkar. He does seem like such a fascinating person in all that he has achieved. So that's all that I have to say. Runa, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I wanted to, by the way, I mean, I came late, but the little that I did hear of Anna's presentation was really wonderful. It seems succinct. Yeah. Second is, I wanted to respond to something that Gautam had said. He had said this business about reservation for 10. Oh no, Vasudha had said reservation for 10 years. The Constitution did actually envisage only 10 years. And they said, we will see what the situation is like. And then we will all take a decision whether to extend it. And it has been extended. Next question is, when you talk about people wanting to become, or actually like being part of the Dalit category in order to avail of jobs, please understand the reservation is only applicable to government jobs. And in today's India, liberal India, I mean, how many government jobs are there available? I mean, doesn't the private sector employ more? Number one. Number two, even the reservation, many people don't know it. I know it because I come from a government background. Many jobs, many sectors of jobs which involve safety, which involve certain kind of specific qualification, there is no reservation for that. It's only very general type of jobs where you have, which is basically clerical in nature, that you do have.
There is also a reservation for college admissions.
Yes, there is reservation, but then you have to give access to education, right? So my
Yes,
view was that, you should have many, many more schools and colleges so that you can cater to it more. And therefore, you can't say much when you give them access to education in educational institutions. But you should have more of them because, just giving even 30, 40, 50% is obviously not going to do it. Next thing I would like to say is about the caste system. I mean, I didn't understand it myself till much later. Uh, People who have been privileged to be born in the caste, in the higher caste, they never think that there is a caste system because they don't face it. But it's a very different story from the other side, if you get what I mean, which I got a glimpse of in again in my career, where they were so touchy. Dalits were very touchy, about it. And they could feel it all the time that XYZ is a Brahmin and I am not. And, I have to compete more. It's a lot like women. I'm sure a lot of women will understand this feeling, when you're in a man's world and you're competing with men. It's a similar kind of feeling. And therefore, frankly, my sympathies have gone up with all of this. And the other thing I wanted to say is you have to enable, and therefore affirmative action is not just giving jobs. Achha, I also was very much a thing that you should give a job because the idea of giving a job in the reserve category was to pull the family up. But it shouldn't go on to the next generation. I feel there should be that limit because if you've got it, your children shouldn't be entitled to it because you're already then, you have access to whatever. But 70 years, 75 years down the line, you will find a lot of people, especially in the civil services, who are third generation Dalits, and they have got into civil service jobs. And I think that's not the purpose of the whole business.
I agree. There is regarding the creamy layer.
Gautam, a little louder.
Similar.
Regarding the creamy layer and the second generation, or at least the third
So it
generation,
needs a
we should
review. Everything needs tweaking and reworking a lot. But the critical thing is access to resources, which we haven't got a very good track record, I think, for a country our size.
Okay.
And resources, not
Anna,
just education, also health. Because if you don't eat well and if you're not healthy, you can't study. Your mind is distracted. I mean, nutrition plays a huge factor in all of this.
one of the
Mo,
factors.
can you take over now? You're there, I can see you there.
yeah, I'm
Take over.
definitely there. Yeah, well, I mean, are there more people who would like to say something?
I think Gautam didn't finish what he was saying.
Gautam, please.
I was just regarding what Runa was talking about. I agree
You're
that
very soft, Gautam.
I was agreeing with the Runa about the fact that the second or at least the third generation should not have the benefit of the continuance of if the first two generations had taken the advantage of reservation. And the other aspect is of creamy layer, and the level of creamy layer is the cutoff point is very high. And the third is that I'm slightly confused and I'm not clear about today's as this matter of recognizing casteism in the Californian University or Canada. Uh, uh, does anybody know why such a thing has arisen at all there? What casteism has a role in the new universities abroad?
Casteism has gone abroad. You see what is happening. That's what happened in Google. The lower castes in Google felt that the upper castes were discriminating against them. Same thing in the universities. Till they had to bring it to the attention of the university, and the word caste, discrimination on color, gender, etc., and caste had to be included in their agenda or memorandum of association.
Okay.
Whatever.
I think Urmila wants to say
Yes,
something.
Urmila.
And Moini, then you have to call it a day.
Yeah, thank
Urmila?
you. Yeah, thank you. I would like to share something.
Can't hear.
One of the
Urmila,
things
talk a little louder.
one of the things that I like the comment about gender, and only when you're a woman you understand what it is to be a Dalit person or even a Black person. Discrimination across the board comes to you only when you are one of the people who have been discriminated against. Otherwise, it's very difficult to catch what exactly it is to be a Dalit person. The other thing that I wanted to say was most of the time we don't know who the Dalit leaders are. It so happens because of my work, I worked with Karve Institute in Pune. And the woman who was there, and I mean, she is now retired, Ambedkar, and she is such a bright, brilliant woman. And through her posts on FBs, because I have not been personally involved, there is so much happening within their world. Discussions, the kind of thinking. And I think with a group like ours, like I can only say because I've just joined, it may be worth taking forward this discussion by inviting somebody who would be able to talk more on this issue so that we understand it better. Because frankly speaking, even my knowledge is very limited, and I'm very glad there was this discussion on the book. And thank you for giving such a excellent, detailed view of the book itself.
Yes, Anna has done
Thank
a
you.
very good job
Thank
there.
Yes,
Mo,
yes.
take over now.
Yes.
Yeah, so Mo can call Yashika that next.
Yashika. Okay, where is she?
She's
Yashika.
no. I mean, she's an author. She's a Dalit author.
Okay,
we should
okay,
call
okay.
her.
Oh, okay.
We
Okay,
should try and get her to come to our meeting.
Mo, come on.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. So I think
Yashika, that is the person who has written her biography, right?
Yes. Coming out. She called it coming out.
Of course, we should. I mean, I'm sure they will be thinking about it. But I heard her in the Jaipur Lit Fest, and I'm sorry, but my understanding, and of course, it was a very limited understanding because she spoke, and you can get very small impression. But I was not impressed, not because of anything else, but I just felt it was a very, very privileged look of Dalit life.
Okay.
Because if any one of you has read her book, most of the time her family hid the fact that they were Dalits from the whole population, in the sense in their interactions with social this thing. Nothing, no, I'm not blaming anyone. There's no judgment here. Whatever you can do to protect yourself, you must do it. And if that was the way, that was the way. But the sheer fact is, what came across was, it was not an understanding of a Dalit person of what it is to live in India. That's all.
Okay.
I see.
And
That's
I want to thank Mohini and Satish for giving me this opportunity. It was really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Anna, we are so grateful to you for having accepted and for having done such a good job. You know, discussions on these loaded topics are never easy. I mean, it's never easy to summarize a book. And I think you were very judicious and very careful in just telling us without taking sides, without being judgmental about what has been said. So I think you did an excellent job. So I'm really grateful to you for that. And I think the forum has enjoyed it. And, you know, we've had a good discussion. I always want, you know, I thought that Ambedkar changed his religion very late, you know, in his life. And I guess he probably thought that he didn't have any alternatives. I mean, he didn't know, let us say, what alternative to take until he finally decided on one. And even there, you know, the maids that work for us, etc., do belong to new Buddhism, but new, and again, it hasn't really served the purpose, has it? Because casteism has not gone away. And like when I was reading God of Small Things and talking about that, some critic has said that Christianity doesn't have caste, but Christians have caste. So somehow, you know, Indians, it's so imbued in us. It's sort of part of our DNA or something, which is a terrible thing to have to say, because this is something that we want to get rid of. And like Anna said, Satish said, so many of you said, when we were growing up, we really thought that caste was something that was on its way out. now that we were on our own, now that we were this idealistic state, we were going to keep all the good things and let go all the bad. And I remember my father telling me when I asked him about caste and what caste am I and all that, he said, oh, caste is the worst thing about Hinduism. But don't worry, by the time you grow up, it won't exist. He believed that. And therefore, I believed it. So I'm so disappointed now. But I think every political party lacks the courage to take any kind of very definitive move away from it. It's a very touchy subject, you know? And I think VP Singh has to be thanked for this terrible muddle that we've landed ourselves into. Because once committed, there's no way to step out. And this is a very awful thing to realize. How do we get out of this? How do we retract? Anyway. So yes, so Satish, you were saying that Urmila needed
Urmila was quietly,
rewarding session. It brings us back, and the whole thing about book discussions basically is that it brings ideas to the forefront of our minds when we look at a book and we ruminate on them, think about them all over again. And that's the meaning of a discussion. So thank you, Anna. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody who has participated.
One little bit.
Okay, yes. All right. So that's that then. Thank you very much. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, everyone who joined the discussion. Thank you for everyone who listened and therefore thought. And thank you, Sunita. You were our tech person today that I was going to rely on. Thank you so much. I'm always scared, you know, when one of these knowledgeable people aren't there. I mean, I said, Eek, who's going to be there today? And Sunita said, yes, she'll be there. So thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.